Now in Scientology, they think anybody who is having a hard time in studying has got a barrier to study. One of the barriers to study is having words that you do not understand. So L.ron Hubbard wrote a course. There's a couple. There's learning how to learn, and the basic study manual. And in there, it teaches you that if you do not understand a word that you're reading, your mind might go blank, or you might staring off into the distance, and you will exhibit other behaviors that are much more disruptive, like the ones that I was exhibiting. Scientology does not believe in dyslexia. Dyslexia is non-Scientology word for having misunderstood words. Now in Scientology, no matter how many times I clear the word, words on the page always dance in front of my eyes. And that is something that I could never get rid of. And I've always was a very poor student when it came to reading. Really, what Scientology believe is that dyslexia is not a real thing. And if your children are not well-behaved children and don't sit right and not disruptive, it's because they have encountered a word that they do not know the meaning of. And it could be a word that they read in a book. It could be a word that they saw on an advertisement, billboard or something. And that's the only reason why a kid doesn't sit still. So that was my diagnostic, my Scientology diagnostic as to why I was fighting at school, as to why I stole, as to why I had bad grades. It's because I had words that I didn't understand. I wasn't acting up because I was lonely, that I had essentially no one really there to parent me or look out for me. I wasn't failing school because I had dyslexia, and that on the rare occasion when I did do paper or homework, my mom would hit me because I had used one of her encyclopedias. I didn't steal money so that I could actually eat breakfast in the morning. Don't get me wrong, stealing is bad regardless, really. But I wasn't stealing so I could get myself toys. I was essentially acting up and was a problem child because I saw the word administration and didn't know what administration was. There was just that. Basically, because L.ron Hubbard wrote what he wrote, nothing else about my life was even looked into. That's what he says. A child is disruptive because they do not understand the material they've read or been reading, and that's the only reason. So the solution to that was to pull me out of school illegally in my final trimester, I think, of school, and put me in a Scientology school called l'École de l'Éveil, which was based in Paris. My mom was struggling financially. I felt that all the time as a kid who never got Christmas presents, always hungry, never had enough clothes. And she was struggling despite me going to free public school. Now, she was being told that she had to pay for a private institution so that I could become a better kid. In that school, they'll make sure I use a dictionary, and because I would have no words that I did not understand, I would be a golden child. So my mother had to work part-time in the kitchens, making lunch for the kids to try to help pay for the tuition of the private school. And so I went to the school, and they ran a creche, and when I was there, they had children between the, ages of just being a few months old to about 18, 19 years old. And I think, if I'm not, I could be very incorrect in that, there was about 30 kids. And the tuition for monthly, I believe, was 3,000 francs, which is probably like the equivalent of, the 90s, 300 pounds, so it's It's very expensive. Now, the Scientology style of studying is each one to their own pace, which should technically work for me. So you'll be given a book and you'll be given a checklist, and on this checklist it will say, first read the first chapter of the book. So you'll read it. Now, there will be what they call a supervisor in the room. So the job of the supervisor is to make sure that you're not displaying what they call signs of having a word you do not understand. So they just go around, everybody's reading, but you have to sit still, your hands on the table, as still as possible. If you twitch, they will go make you reread the material that you just read, or ask you random words in the page. If you fail, you have to clear the word and all of its definition, use it in a sentence, and also learn its derivation. If you're slouching, they'll make you recreate what you're reading with clay or blocks of wood or whatever. It was just very excessive. If you're, for instance, looking elsewhere but the page that you're meant to be reading, the supervisor will make you go back to the beginning, read everything back, and make sure that you understand the words. So if you've gone back to your material and you've understood everything, and they'll be sat with the book and say, what is the definition of the word justice? And you give them the definition. Now, if you hesitate to give them the definition of the word, you failed. You have to go back. They give you a little sheet where it says you failed on to tell the definition of such word, and they make you read from that, where the word first appear on the page or in the book. Now, if you're on chapter 3, right, and the word justice was being used in the title of the book, you would have had to go and essentially start the book from the beginning. And that could be based, yes, indeed, you did not know the definition of the word justice, but it could also be because you hesitated. And that the hesitation for them is based on people. Some people give you a little bit more time to think about the definition. Some of them you have to straight away just recite definitions of words. That never sat right with me. I'm somebody who struggle even explaining things sometimes. I know exactly what I want to say in my head, but it's not coming out. I sometimes forget how to pronounce words, and it was just incredulous to me how you just had to be flawless 100% of the time. And yes, some people are actually able to just read words on the page and remember everything about it. There are people who are so quick in accessing any data in their head so quickly, but it's not everyone that's like that, And that was the aim of Scientology when it came to study. You're going to be somebody who just remembers every definition of a word. But like I said previously, it's not a bad thing to have a kid read a book and they come across the word, show me exhibit A, and you don't know what exhibit means, then you don't know what the person really wants you to do. So yes, if you do not understand a word, it's best that you find out what it means so that you understand the full sentence. It's not a crazy idea, and it's not even a unique and new idea that came out when Ron Hubbard wrote his book. He's taking something from somewhere else and just, ruins it. Now, the school did have a curriculum, but everybody was at their own pace, so they will have the books like I explained before, read chapter 1, etc. And then when you finish the book, you'll attest and be all happy, and everybody will clap in the classroom that you finished that course, etc. But what was very real, what I noticed is that the school also seemed to favor art-orientated subjects, so music, drama, art as in like drawing. If a student was naturally talented, they would get more time to pursue that. All right. Now, Scientology are obsessed with art and celebrities, you know, for very good reason. They like celebrities and they like people who can be like Tom Cruise, basically. So the school always had some kind of theatre theme going on with it, and children making their own plays, etc., which is pretty good. But that meant that the rest of us that were not so inclined into the arts were just thrown into the courtroom just with our little books and checklists, doing nothing. And because I was quite a bad academic, I would wiggle out of my classes to go and actually make lunch in the kitchen. That's what I would do with my school days and hours in the morning. So I would either cook some lunch or actually make cakes in the afternoon. So the school did not have any structure. And to be fair, if you take any kid and give them, well, you've got the choice of going to school, learn, or you can do whatever you want. A lot of them will choose do whatever you want. That's why I think sometimes, yes, you need to tell children what to do. And also, additionally to the school, favoring subjects like art, they would also book castings with the kids at the school, that also struck me really weird. But I know that a few times I've never got to do a casting because I was a colored person. There was myself and my best friend at the time. He was African, and I'm mixed African and Caucasian, and his sister was in the school. We were the only people of color. And when it came to casting, we frequently, especially for like Benetton adverts, and Benetton always struck me as very diverse company that used different people with different backgrounds in their adverts. But for some reason, the school would say, well, no, you guys can't go because you're not white. That was my first brush with racism with Scientology. It's not the last, all right? So basically me and my friend would be alone because everybody else who was white went to do a casting and film an advert that would be shown on TV later. And those castings they did during school hours. We would also, during school hours, go in the metro and streets of Paris to sing and distribute the Way to Happiness booklets. Well, we paid for it. No. But somehow we did that during school hours. But good thing is I made really good friendships in school. Some that lasted, some that didn't, unfortunately. But I can't say that I received an education in that school at all. And after a year, my mom just couldn't keep up the payments, and I had to go back to a public school. Despite me having dyslexia and things not going well for me at home, I managed to pass every single exam that I was given. I was in the top of my class, but I never failed a year. I was now a full year behind in my schooling because I attended the Scientology school. And when I came back to a public school, I had to redo a year. So essentially I was the oldest in my class. Not only was my mother out of pocket, but that whole experience also had a very negative effect on my education. And it's not going to be the last time where Scientology really screwed me over with my education. But I guess in Scientology's eyes, I was going into, in a Scientology school. I was spending a lot of time also at the CC Paris. And one day I was mesmerized by seeing two women in full, what looked like Navy uniform. They were walking around the building. They had like the whole synchronized step. down. I inquired about them and I found out that they were from the Sea Organization in Flag, Florida, in the US. And this, 10-year-old me like, oh, that's so cool, and I want to be like them. So I kind of expressed my interest in wanting to become a Sea Org member. I didn't really fully understand it, except that there was a big mission looking for people to spread the word of Scientology. So my mom was called in. We spoke to these ladies. That was the first time that I signed a billion-year contract for the Sea Organization. Now, because they were based in America and we didn't speak English at all, we were put on a program of a step of things that we need to do before we're ready to go to the Sea Organization. I'm not sure the program my mom was given, but I knew for myself I had to learn English. It was just a mandatory requirement. So we were given a little program that we had to do before we were ready to go to the US. And life kind of continued as normal. I went back to public school and I was just plodding along. The amount of stuff that I had missed, quite terrifying. So I was behind on schoolwork. I was just behind. It was not a good time for me at all. But after a year, I did try to learn English, but that kind of SEAL thing kind of faded away. Now, during that time, I remember my mom, we were just struggling, and my mom was renting literally a room in Scientologists' flat in Paris. I remember they had like such a lovely kid that I used to look after quite a bit. Also, that was the same period of time that I did my first ever course in Scientology. That was children's communication course. So I did the course and it just teaches you on how to communicate effectively. So again, the course makes sense. It teaches you to listen to someone, really get what they're saying and acknowledging what they're saying, as well as not interrupting the conversation. They're the basic, and somehow it was like kind of a hailed cure to communication. One day we were called into the CC Paris because there was a SEAL member, a recruiter for the SEAL at the CC Paris, and he had heard that we signed the SEAL contract for the US, and he was based in St. Hill, UK. So we had a talk with him. I remember, I think it was less than probably about 10 days from the time that he spoke to us literally leaving. So he handled, found a solution or an answer to all of my mom's objection as to why she couldn't go now. I know my only objection was I wanted my pet rabbit, Lapinu, I miss him, to come with me. Oh, that's fine. He's like, okay, fine, we'll put the rabbit in the car. We don't have money to take him to a vet and have, work done, blood tests and a passport. So we will smuggle it into the UK. That was his solution to my objection. But thinking back, my mother and I were perfect candidates for the Sea Org. We were super poor. We were struggling in everything. I'm assuming it really did show because of my scruffy clothes, holey shoes, etc. And so we were perfect candidates. It was like, okay, you get to be the most important people on the planet, and you will always have food, you will always have a roof over your head. And because you're a SEAL member, you get all of the courses and the Scientology bridge for free. We had nothing. We didn't have a house, we didn't have a car, we didn't have anything that tied us. We were living very, poor means. We had nothing, right? The last time clothes were purchased for me was when I was 8 years old, and I outgrew them all. So we were ideal. In later years in SEAL, we still had nothing. So at least we were used to having nothing. So really the prospect of being given a roof over your head, food, maybe a clean uniform, clean clothes, but doing it to save the planet, to get, you know, free passage to the bridge to total freedom by working was very attractive, and it sounded like a dream pretty much. You know, the brochures made everybody look so smart and you know, effective, and things that you really appreciate in other people. So really it sounded like a dream. But I had no idea that the deal came with racism, mental abuse, as well as assault in my later years in the SEA organization. That wasn't in the brochures for sure, but it was a very, very big thing there. So on this happy note, I will see you in the next video. Please remember to like and subscribe this video if you enjoy going down this rabbit hole. And thank you so much for your support. And see you on Twitch, hopefully. Take care, guys. Bye.